In this video segment, we're going to be covering basic arithmetic. Now, you'll be needing to know this information on virtually every problem that you do on the SAT test. It's going to involve dealing with fractions and knowing what to do when you divide or multiply those fractions. Talking about something as simple as operations with signed integers. Knowing what to do if you multiply two negative numbers together, for instance. It's basic stuff that you should know, and most of it you will know, but it's probably a good idea to go through it and make sure that you do know everything that is required for the SAT. We're also going to talk about dealing with exponents, and we're going to be covering square roots. So with that brief introduction, let's get started. Okay, let's take a look first at how we handle signed integers. Let's just think of an example here. Let's have a plus 4 and a minus 16. Here we have unlike signs, and the rule is when you have unlike signs, you go with the sign of the largest integer. 16 is larger than 4, and its sign is a negative sign. So we can put that first. Then you subtract the smaller integer from the larger integer. And 16 with 4 subtracted from it is 12. Now, let's take a look what happens if you have the same sign. If we have a minus 6 and a minus 7, we keep the signs of the two integers, or 3 or 4, whatever combination you're combining, and you add the numbers. Whereas up here you subtracted, down here you add. So we're going to add 6 and 7 together to get 13, and we keep the sign that they had, minus. Same thing, of course, and it becomes more obvious when you're dealing with positive signs, but they're the same sign. So if we had 6 and a 10, and we combine them, of course, that's going to be 16. This is all basic information that you're dealing with when you're doing addition and subtraction. So now let's take a look at how the rules are when you are multiplying or dividing. Okay, here we're going to take a look at multiplication and division. And the rules here are that if you have like signs, you're going to always, when you multiply them, get a positive number. And when you have unlike signs, you're always going to get a negative number. So that's pretty easy to remember. Let's just take some examples. Let's say minus 4 times a minus 6. You go ahead and you know that it's going to be positive because like signs give you a positive, and 4 times 6 is 24. And of course the same thing if we had two positive numbers multiplied times each other. 7 times 4 equals plus, you don't have to write that plus, but it's a positive 28. Okay, so let's look at what happens if you divide. Okay, if we have with like signs, if we've got a minus 4 divided by a minus 2, it's the same rule. You're going to get a positive answer. So you know your answer is going to be a positive. You take 2 into 4 and you get 2. So your answer would be a plus 2. And of course, if they were both positive, then you'd also get a positive answer. If you divide a positive number by another positive number, you're going to get a positive answer. Now, if you have unlike signs, you're always going to get a negative answer. So let's say we had a minus 8 and it's being divided by a plus 4. Your answer, their unlike sign, is going to be negative, and 4 goes into 8 2 times. So those are the only rules you need to know for multiplication and division. Okay, let's take a look at this problem that I've put on the board here. And we're going to apply something called PEMDAS. Hopefully that rings some bells. It means, as an acronym, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And it's our order of operations by convention. We first handle what's in the parentheses, then we take care of the exponents, multiply, divide, and then do the addition and subtraction. So let's do it in that order. Let's first look at our parentheses. We've got 3 different sets of parentheses here. This first one, if we do what's inside the parentheses, we get 18. So I can just leave the parentheses off. Inside this parentheses, we've got 16 divided by 4. And 4 goes in the 16 4 times. So this time, though, I have to leave it in parentheses because I have this exponent. And then I've got something that's going to be multiplied times that. So I have to leave the parentheses here, and I bring down these other operations for now. Okay, now we need to deal with the exponents before we do this multiplication. This would mean 4 times 4 times 4. It's being cubed, and that, if you multiply it out, is 64. And we're going to take that times 5, bring down the 18 plus minus 6 divided by 2. Next thing we're going to do is our multiplication, and this ends up being 320. And we're going to then do our division, which 6 divided by 2 is 3, and bring down that minus sign, plus sign, 18. Now, once you get down to where you just have addition and subtraction, you can really do this in any order you want, whatever's convenient with you. I could subtract the 3 from 320, or I could add the 18 to the 320 first, and you'd end up with the same answer. Let's just add 18 to 320, and we get 338. And then we're going to subtract 3 from that. And our final answer is going to be 335. Okay, let's take a look now at some operation using fractions. Let's first look at addition. Let's say we have 3/4, and we're going to add that to 1/8. Now, you should remember that you can't add fractions unless they have the same denominator. So you're probably used to doing what's called common denominators. And you do that by trying to find something that you could multiply one or both of those denominators by so that they're both equal. And in this case, it would be easier to multiply the 4 over here to make it an 8. So we'll go ahead and do that. So we take, in order to do that, and whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. It would be 3/4 times 2 over 2 plus 1/8. And that would, of course, be 6/8 plus 1/8. 6/8 plus 1/8. And our final answer would be 7/8. So that's one way to do it. But let's say that you had a situation where you had to figure out a common denominator for something that was kind of hard to just look at and figure out. Let's say we had 3/8 plus 2 over 110. Okay? Now, right away, you wouldn't see something that would tell you what the common denominator should be. And when you see something like that, not that it will show up on the SAT, but it could be embedded in some problem, is there's something called the bow tie method, and this is in your Princeton review book. You multiply in a cross fashion here, like a bow tie. We put an arrow across here, and you'll also multiply this direction. Now, we'll take 8 times 2, we get 16, and we take 3 times 110, and we're going to get plus 330. That would be our numerator. And then 8 times 110, it would be 880. And if we simplify that, we would get 346 over 880. And now I could start reducing this, divide top and bottom by 2, and work it on down to its most simplified form. We won't do that. I'm just showing you that this is a way to get to the answer if you can't right away see how to have the common denominator. It's called the bow tie method. Okay, let's take a look now at something called the distributive law. And let me just put a basic problem up here. We've got a 4 outside of parentheses, and inside this parentheses we've got some algebraic expression of some sort. Let's just say it's 2a minus 5 plus 3b and minus a c over here, just to make it kind of interesting. The distributive law says that if you want to clear this parentheses, you have to multiply what's on the outside here times every one of these items on the inside individually. So we do that. We take 4 times 2a, we get 8a. 4 times a minus 5 is a minus 20. And 4 times a plus 3b is 12b. And 4 times a minus c is a minus 4c. Now, if we could combine like terms, and there aren't any like terms here, we would have to go ahead and do that to have a final answer. Now, where a lot of people make a mistake is they forget that they have to multiply everything inside the parentheses. So don't ever make that mistake. The other mistake they'll sometimes make, let's just say you have a negative number out here, and we've got 3x squared plus 30x minus 2. Make sure you watch your signs when you're doing the multiplication. So this would be a minus 2 times a plus 3, which would be a minus 6x squared. Minus 2 times a plus 30 would give a minus 60x. And then a minus 2 times a minus 2, like signs, is going to give us a plus 4. And if you remember those two things when you're using the distribution law, you should have no problem.